So it has been a while since we have done this.
It has been a while. It's been actually almost exactly a month.
Is it exactly a month?
The upload for the last STS was the 16th of May.
So I'm just checking for no reason.
Absolutely,
right now.
I already checked.
Okay.
This is why I pulled it up earlier. May 16th was our last STS upload, and so this is our first STS since a whole month. A whole month has gone by, and we haven't talked to you, the lovely viewers of STS. But a lot has happened in the last month.
It has, and yet we still had to have a pre-show ramble to figure out what we were going to talk about.
And I think we came up with something.
We did. We definitely came up with something.
I think we should just hit it from the top.
Okay. Top being the most recent thing, or the...
No, the bottom. We're going to go to the bottom. So the bottom of the month, wasn't it? It was the top of the month. Which one? All right, leave a comment below. Which one is the top? Which one's the bottom? Okay. We were in Vista, California, also known as San Diego suburbs.
It was pretty much, yeah. No one corrected me when I said stay classy San Diego. So
Yeah, I think everybody laughed. And by everybody, I mean like the 4 people who have seen that movie.
yeah, you and Dylan. That was about it.
Yeah, what happened in San Diego or Vista?
So we were in Vista for an SPL2 qualifier, not the final American qualifier. We got one more. We got one more coming up July, 21st to 23rd.
You got it.
Yeah, maybe we should plug this first too.
Yeah, if you want to try to qualify for SPL2, you can try to compete in the USPK national event, which is going to be held in Denver at Apex Movement. And it's from July 21st to the 23rd, with the 21st being an on-site qualifier for the national. So in order to qualify for the national, there's 2 ways. You can qualify through regional circuits that have happened around USA. And through the regional circuits, you can win to get qualified into the national. And then you move on to basically day 2 of the national automatically. Or you can try to compete in day 1 of the national, which is an on-site qualify for it. And that just means you're going to be competing for 3 days straight. But if you didn't have the opportunity to compete in the regionals that allowed you to qualify to the national, you can do it on site in Denver. And then the winners of the USPK National will be invited to SPL2 for a truly international competition.
Truly. But before we got to that, again, we had our final, like a regular qualifier, I guess we will call it, because the USPK National, as you laid out there very, very nicely, by the way. I feel like I hit record here, and when I said that we hadn't done this in a while is because I felt unprepared to start talking.
I'm super prepared.
All right. I'm glad one of us is. Yes, Vista qualifier was at Tempest, their North County location. Beautiful gym, lots of cool things in there.
It's the one with the airplane,
which we were able to use quite frequently throughout the competition. I actually was really happy with how the speed courses turned out, because we did have one that kind of started at the back of the airplane. We used it as part of an ascent, and then athletes came running down it and then into the main parkour section. It was a challenge when we first got there, looking at, okay, there's a spring floor in the middle of this gym, so we have to figure out how to work around it. But I think we did. I think we managed to.
Yeah, I think overall it was great. It was a great event. There was I thought the skill challenges were really cool. The gym was actually really fun to train on. We actually had an opportunity to train a little bit, and it was actually fun also designing skill challenges and speed courses. It's a smaller parkour section, but there's a lot packed in it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, really enjoyed the competition. We had some awesome athletes come out for it, including a few Japanese athletes came over for this event, and all 3 of them qualified. That's pretty epic.
Smart investment.
Yeah, exactly. And then one thing that happened, and this is kind of a theme throughout our travels over the last month, is the realization that how young everyone is who's like high-level athletes now. Like, it was like, I'm going to say kid after kid after kid. We're realizing like, oh, these are like the favorites to win. Skill, for instance. And it's like 19. So, pretty crazy to see how the younger how the sport has started to skew younger over the last little while. And this is a prediction of yours a long time ago, back in North American Parkour Championship days, where you were saying that there was going to be like the people on the podium were not going to be, well, not older folk, but like not going to be like mid to late 20s. They're more likely going to be closer to teenagers.
Yeah, I think actually that is going to take a while to be true, particularly in skill. Depending on how parkour dictates the design of challenges. I was about to say how we design them, but we do get heavily influenced by what is seen as culturally like popular. So currently, and it just looks better on film, and I think we maybe have talked about this on the show before, but how things do need to be of scale. And one of the things that is going to be required if a lot of challenges are big scale is a big person to perform them. And so I just think about like last year's lineup of like our podium finishers for like men's skill. Those are some big dudes, and some of them have got bigger in the last.
So when you say big,
actually, I'm gonna say all of them got bigger.
When you say big, you don't necessarily mean tall. You mean like
both
thick boys,
both
or gals,
both. Yeah.
But here's the thing: this podium that happened in at Tempest North County were 2 19-year-olds and a 20-year-old. I think I'm not sure how old Ari is, but he's pretty young. So that's a pretty, like, we already saw it there. I mean, it's not SPL2, so we don't know how they're going to perform there.
Yeah.
But
I think the prediction I'm making right now is I think in order to, again, unless we change the way we set up challenges, if challenges remain scaled, particularly in moves like catbacks, laches, if there's like standing jump components, I do think there's a level of like physical maturity that needs to occur in the realm of strength in order to be the best, but it also has to be matched with technical proficiency. And like Ari's really good, and he has like the physical maturity, definitely has the physical maturity. But he actually hasn't been doing parkour for as long as Xander or Brandon.
He's actually very new. But yeah, but even Brandon hasn't been doing parkour that long, and he took a huge break in between doing track and basketball. So like,
also, we're doing something that I just need to stop us for a moment here, because we're doing something that I've been trying not to do, particularly in these types of shows, which is just going first name for athletes.
Come on, you don't know Brandon?
So we got Ari Dulfer, who is an athlete that he lives
in Bellingham, Washington.
Yeah. Just dude that came out of nowhere.
He's actually from the same place that Nate Weston is from, Vashon Island. And so that means
that's so interesting.
that only beasts come from Vashon Island. Because I don't know of any other parkour people that come from there. So anyway, but that's near Seattle. So Ari Dulfer, Xander Levitt, who's from the Bay Area. If you watch his Instagram, he mostly does flips.
Now he does, yeah. But he came up training under Daryl Stingley. So you know, he does that is why he's, you know, podiuming and things like skill, and not even competing in style, even though most of his training, I would say, is like style based.
Yeah,
or at least what he posts on Instagram.
He probably enjoys it a little bit more, but he's quite physically capable and technically proficient in skill as well. And then Brandon Hooper, and he is from the Boston area, so Massachusetts. Came up out of Hub, and he's one of the prodigies out of that facility.
Yeah.
We done saying names now?
I think we're done saying names. Yeah, we can continue on with it. I do want to. Is there anything else you want to say about that podium? Because we could spend a lot of time talking about it, but we do have some other things we got to get onto.
I mean, Brandon and Xander were so close. Like I don't know.
It was a cool competition that hopefully we'll get footage out from in a timely fashion. But yeah, they were so close to each other. We haven't seen that before. We haven't seen that because both of them completed all the challenges in the competition, and so it came down to who did it faster.
Yeah, Xander edged him, even though he's a flippy boy. Cool. So I think we're done talking about men's skill there.
Yeah. But on I guess the topic of age too. So we have Nene Nagai, who podiumed and got first place in both skill and style, and she is 16, 17 years old.
Yep.
Which of the two?
I said yep.
Still a teenager. And then there was also, name is escaping me. There was a young lady that won speed. My goodness, I know. Washburn was the last name.
Yeah.
Is it Kate?
Catherine. Yeah, Catherine. I went on her Instagram. She's awesome.
Yes.
She's super good. I think she's out of Texas. She flew out for the event and with her mom and.
Oh, this is not helpful.
Katerina, right there. It says it on there.
What? Am I blind? I'm blind. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. So right, I am blind. Sorry. Yeah. We know this already, though. I need glasses. So.
Right. So she was awesome. Yeah, and she's definitely a teenager. I don't know how old. And then
we have men's speed and men's style. So speed, Joe Unruh.
Yeah. Got
the top spot, and he's definitely an adult.
Former competitor at, I guess it was NAP or OPP. 2019, he was in the main event. He competed in speed.
Yeah.
He did some stuff that nobody else did in the speed courses.
There's a jump that's like right outside the door here that no one's touched.
He's the only one that's done it, and he did it in the middle of the speed course, and I don't think he practiced it.
Oh, really?
I mean, he might have.
I'm just going to live in the world that's true because it's more impressive.
It's cooler if I say it that way. Like, you didn't practice it, and he did a jump that nobody's done and nobody will do.
Yeah, we're blocking it.
We're blocking it, so it's not going to be possible anymore. So, that's the end of that. But he also, like, when we had the bars set up, he did the, like, side strides off of the wood plank instead of the other side with the bars. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Super impressive guy. And he showed up for the Tempest qualifier. Super fast. He's kind of a smaller guy, so he's got, like, this really, like, quick, like, squirrel kind of moves.
I also want to say he's another guy that got bigger. Like, he's a little more swole than he was in 2019.
He's trained harder, maybe. And Hunter Payton, pretty close in time, I think.
And how old is Hunter? Because Hunter looks quite young.
I don't know how old Hunter is. He does look young, though. Probably 19. My money's on 19.
Okay.
And Hunter's also super quick, a little bit less refined skill-wise, but attacks the course, and so he's still able to do really well.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how he how he does like over the course of the next few years, because I think he's going to start getting more skilled in parkour and eventually going to be able to do some really great things at speed.
Yeah, and this is one topic that came out of that performance and that competition, and it's something that often I think gets touched on in parkour is speed parkour. And I think what we're starting to see with athletes like Hunter and maybe even like Tanguy from Sweden.
Nope.
No, help me.
Try again.
No, I'm not going to
Come
try
on,
again.
just
No,
name
no,
all of them.
no, I'm not going to name all of them.
He's from the Netherlands.
Netherlands, thank you.
Yeah. Also known as Holland.
Yes. Athletes like those, because they're not typically, I mean, Tanguy is probably not actually the best example, but Hunter Payton definitely is, where he's moving through a course and it's scrappy. And you're not seeing a lot of what we would, I think, should refer to as like classic parkour skill. So we think of as like classic techniques performed. And there's a lot of extra steps and a lot of extra touches, but he's just moving so quickly. And then there's techniques that come out of his practice of the course that aren't like what I would say traditional techniques. And I don't even have names for them because they're not like the classic techniques. And I actually think this is going to be a development in parkour where we actually start valuing and shining light on things that start to happen in speed courses, which is really cool to me, because that's kind of what the purpose of speed courses is it's like putting parkour in its like the idea of what it was supposed to be, the fastest A to B, like what's the fastest way to get past this structure, what's the fastest way to get past this obstacle. And through our competitions, we keep it open so you can go over, under, things aren't off limits. And I think what's going to start to happen with athletes like Hunter Payton is they're going to start doing stuff that looks weird, and I think is very easy to like hate on for like the classic practitioner right now. And we're going to start valuing it because they're going to be just like creating moves essentially or just like little changes in techniques or things that maybe don't look as cool but are like way faster.
So I think what needs to be said here is that both Joe and Hunter, and I'll mention as well Brett,
Brett Vance,
who just narrowly missed the podium, but all three of them are on the Tempest chase tag team, and they're all super fast, and they all have this really scrappy style that's, like you said, non-traditional. And so it's interesting to see that there is this crossover between World Chase Tag and Speed Parkour, where you can be fast while not necessarily being traditional. And so it's cool that both Chase Tag and Speed courses have this element to them that is, it's a true, how do we say this? It's a true like laboratory where it's not just like the theoretical, like, is step vault faster, or is speed vault faster, or is a Kong faster, or is a dash vault faster? It's like, no, it's really putting them to the test, and maybe none of those are actually the faster way. Maybe like a weird duck is actually faster, or whatever it is, right? So I love the idea of there being this process of experimentation and really truly finding out which is the best way, which is actually potentially different for individuals, right? So like there might be an objective best way, but somebody could perform something that they do just a little bit faster than something that somebody else does the best way. So yeah, very, very interesting to see that. And I think it's really cool to see the World Chase Tag guys coming in and trying to compete in speed and actually doing very, very well.
Yeah. So I think we do have to move on to our next event. There's still probably much more to say about what happened in Vista, but
we got tacos.
We did get tacos. Got a lot of fast food there. That was the end of it. Okay. What was the first thing that we did in New York?
Ooh, oh my God. I don't want to say.
I'm going to say.
All right, go
We
ahead.
got Chick-fil-A and pizza. It was the first thing we did in New York.
Yeah. So the significance of this, if you don't know, is that Chick-fil-A doesn't exist in Canada, so it's a novelty whenever we go to the U.S. And so, yeah, even though we had it while we were in Vista the week before, we still did it when we got to New York. And then immediately after that, we also got pizza because we're in New York. And then what happened?
And then we got into...
Okay, New York is a crazy place. I don't know if you haven't been to New York City. It's such a wild place to me. I've been there many times. And it's still, every time I go there, it's fascinating to me. My favorite things are the bodegas on every single corner. And you can get somebody to make you a sandwich. What kind of sandwich? I don't know. You tell them what you want. And then they make it for you.
I think there's only one place in the world that I would put in this category that I haven't been to, which is like, I don't know, I'd have to look up like what's the most populated place in India is what I'm referring to. But I've been to Hong Kong, I've been to London, I've been to New York. And to my knowledge, those are the most like densely packed with people places outside of...
I mean, Tokyo, I'm sure is. I mean,
yeah,
I haven't been to. New York is the only like really massive city I've ever been to.
You've been to London.
Yes, I have been to London. You're right. All right,
But it is different. It is different though. Like, and I think I agree with what you're saying with like New York being more to experience maybe than the other places mentioned. I get similar vibes, but yeah, New York does have like just a lot of unique
New York
things about
unique New York. It's another
such as
it's another it's another Anchorman reference in one episode.
Yeah.
See if we can fit another one in. Sorry, bodegas? Yeah.
Yeah, more about
bodegas. Oh, I love a good sandwich. If you know me, I'm a big sandwich guy, so.
Yeah, if Tom is ever coming to your city, the appropriate thing to do, if you want to make friends with Tom, is recommend him a place to get a good sandwich. Don't show him how good you are at parkour. Don't get him into a dive roll challenge or anything. Just get this man a good sandwich, and he will be loyal to you forever.
Well, I don't know. I stab you in the back for a good sandwich. Okay, so sandwiches happen in New York, but also what were we there for?
Move NYC.
Move NYC. Okay, so the Movement Creative is an organization that operates out of New York City. They host this jam and movement festival, I guess we could call it, called Move NYC. And the last few years, it's actually been held on top of a school, a high school. Or I guess it's technically on top of several high schools.
Is it more than one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the 2 floors below the roof, I think, belong to New Design High School. And then there's like another high school under that, and then another.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I thought it was
crazy.
all New Design. Okay.
So yeah, it's a big building right next to a parkour spot too, and then so on top of it is a. I guess it's like basketball courts, kind of like a multi-purpose like activity place for kids to go and like do physical activities. I'm sure like they
Kid
do
stuff.
I'm sure they do PE classes up there and stuff, but they actually do pop-up little parkour parks there, and I think they teach the students like in the weeks leading up to Move NYC, and then they build out this massive setup with different like stages, I guess you can call them, of parkour equipment. And then the event has coaches and they're running workshops, and then there's a big jam setup that is only for jamming, so you can train on that. You can come just for the jam, you can go take some workshops and jam, you could just do the workshops, you could also eat food and hang out and do challenges and stuff like that. So it's a really cool event. What were your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy?
Yeah, I was so.
This is your first year, right?
It was my first year. Yeah, just really grateful to be invited out, and I was just so impressed by the setup because we do a big event, and there's just different things. There's just I think part of why I was impressed is I just rolled up and saw that they were during the setup phase and everything, and then roll up again during the opening. And two of the things that really stuck out to me was the sheer number of people, like volunteers and staff involved. It appeared to me to be like 30 people-ish. That's the number I'm going to throw out there. And then all the stuff that they had to take up through the building, build, set up, and then the various different setups and builds that the Movement Creative have got just like very proficient at. And we spent some time talking to the only person I really got to talk about it much with was Steve Zavitz, and he was just showing me different examples of the ways that they're able to pack and set up pop-up parkour setups. And it was really cool because that is something that we don't actually do very well with Origins, and something that I'd like to get into more is being able to do parkour setups, but it's because we have a great gym and we don't really have to. But occasionally we go to schools, and I'm usually kind of like we just went to some schools, and I'm usually kind of almost embarrassed by like what we end up bringing because we don't have much to bring, and it always just kind of feels like it's being improvised every time we get called to go to a school.
I still think we do a good job overall. It's just, it would be more impressive if we had the setups that Movement Creative has. But the thing is, they've gotten really good at that by necessity, right? Like they don't have a parkour gym. They don't have like a physical location. They do like operate out of like a really small facility where they have basically a pop-up, one of their little pop-up parks, but for the most part, they've been teaching outside for the last decade or whatever, and either they're relying on existing spot, or they're doing pop-up setups, or they're going to schools, or they're doing so by necessity. They've come up with really great ways to construct parkour setups, and they've probably gotten really efficient at doing it, right? So that's like a disadvantage that we have of having a physical space, is that we just haven't emphasized putting our resources and time towards like building these temporary parkour park setups. Yeah,
it also is just like a sign of the times too, I guess, and just the development of that sort of thing over time. I remember like when like key clamps weren't a thing, and now it's just you can just Lego stuff together basically, and there you go, it's parkour. So it's cool to see, and I think it's something where if I was talking to someone trying to start a parkour program, I would definitely look to businesses like the Movement Creative before even opening a gym, because clearly there's ways to make a lucrative business with just modular equipment that you can pack and bring wherever
without having to pay rent.
Yeah, without the overhead for rent. Yeah.
I mean, they have to store the equipment somewhere, so I actually don't know where they store it.
Well, there was, for a time, Jesse was keeping a lot of it at his house. I remember there was a time when I went out to New York and he had so much stuff just at his house, and he has a van. I don't know what the situation is now, but
he has the space for it. So like, what if he didn't, right? Yeah. So like, then he has to figure out a way to store all of the pipe and those big wooden blocks and so on. But still, I mean, it's still probably cheaper than renting a 10,000 square foot space or however big.
Yeah. So I kind of want to come back to talking about Move NYC, but I want to do it by talking about the next event, and then
and then
going
come
back because we think about it as like there's two festival or two jams, right? It's like, I guess you could call Move NYC, like you said, Movement Festival. You know, it's not just a parkour jam, but it still is a parkour jam. You know, just like this coming week, there's going to be like Oslo Movement Gathering, right? It's called a gathering, but yeah, it's a parkour jam. It's just that it's developed over the years to be like much more than that. The same as Hubbable has over the years, which was where we went the following weekend in Boston. And Hubbable this year, and I don't know if they do this every year, had a film festival. And it was cool because the film festival wasn't just like a projector in a gym; it was actually in a theater, and so that was really cool. And they had one day at one of their like amazing spots, Josiah Quincy School. Yep. they had try to do like a speed course outside. So it's just like another example of like more than just like we're just going to meet up at spots and do parkour. There was some of that, but it's like the idea of a.
Well, there's still a lot of that actually.
Yeah, but it's like I'm kind of torn because like I'm wondering if this is like the right move for parkour. If it should be going the direction of like jams can't just be like. If you're trying to get a lot of people together, it can't just be like let's go to a spot. It has to have these other things. Because I think some people are missing, like, I just came out to this to jump around and vibe with people. I'm not really into the other things. I don't know. I'd love to get like a consensus of what is like valued by like the average parkour enthusiast right now. Well,
this is a great question because, you know, there's okay. How am I going to frame this? Okay, so there is like the larger parkour community who are cultural practitioners who got into parkour in some fashion and they like meeting up with friends and training and getting clips or not getting clips, just training. And then there's also another subset of parkour people who are primarily like gym goers and like take classes or like parts of like the movement creatives community, you know, like people who are taking classes through them or people who take classes through Origins and maybe don't meet up with or do parkour as culturally as we would say. And so I think of like the Movement Creatives event, Move NYC, as being trying to bring both of those groups together, where it's a big parkour jam where culturally practicing parkour people are coming together and jamming and maybe taking a workshop here or there. And then other people who are more like student-based, like focused on taking classes, coming in for the workshops, and then maybe doing a little bit of jamming. And it's kind of like trying to mesh those two groups together, which I find is positive. But like a jam like Hubbable, I think, is largely the more cultural practitioners coming together and jamming. Now, having other activities happening alongside it isn't a bad thing. In fact, I think it's good. It adds to the event, and it's also like not mandatory. Like the first day was a gym jam, and there wasn't really any other activities happening other than Rachel Goff did like a women's workshop right before it, and then it was a jam for a few hours, and then that's the end. And then the second day was a jam at Pierce, another school, and then after that jam there was the screening or the film festival, which was optional, right? Like it's part of the jam, but you don't have to go to it, and it's a separate cost or whatever. And then the next day, Josiah Quincy, big jam, optional speed course thing, but that started like a couple hours into the jam. And then so it's like, yeah, I mean, some people were like jamming a bit and then they're like, cool, I want to do the speed course. Others like you and myself, we're like, I'm more into just doing the jam right now. I don't really feel like doing the speed course right now. Not that I don't like speed course. I actually do like speed courses, but I wasn't feeling the speed course at the time. So I like the idea of having these other optional things going on, as like whether it's Move NYC having the workshops as an optional thing that you can kind of like you can take part in that and also take part in the jam. Same thing with Hubbable. Like you can go to the film festival if that piques your fancy, or you could not and just go to the jamming parts, or you could do the speed course, or you could just do the jams. So I think there's a lot of value to having those as options, because it provides more value to the jam, as long as it's not like if it's a fully, like this is what I don't like, is if it's a fully structured jam where it's like, first we're doing this for an hour, then we're going to do this for an hour. Everybody has to stop doing the first thing, and then we're doing the second thing, and then we're doing the third thing. And so that's where I don't like it. But I think Hubbable did it well, where it's like pretty open, and there are fun things that you can do on in addition. Same thing with Move NYC, right? Like you can do the workshops, or you could just jam the whole time, or you could just go downstairs and go train at Scoops.
Yeah. It's basically like I think you're on the right track there, where it's like the best way to do it seems like to have a jam that's just a jam. Maybe it still has to cost a little bit, maybe it doesn't, and then at the same time there's like activations happening that are optional. Because I do think I've made the mistake in the past with planning things like PKBC, where it's just too rigid with the times. But it's because I've been trying to like fit in like other things, like, oh, this will add value to it. But this year, and it is going to happen this year, I'm actually looking at, for those of you in the Vancouver, British Columbia area, PKBC is going to be the final weekend of September, which is...
Go on, keep going.
September 30th and October 1st. It'll probably be like the 29th, 30th, and 1st.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
It will be. Yes.
So I would like to talk a little bit about the film festival.
Okay.
Which I found to be mostly very enjoyable. I thought it was a little bit too long. I think it was like 3 hours, which is like a long time to be sitting in a very, very warm theater with very uncomfortable. I was not sitting in one of the theater chairs either. You weren't either. We were sitting on like these kind of uncomfortable plastic chairs, and I kept trying to like readjust. But so it was a bit long, but overall I thought it was a really, really cool thing, because most of the time when I watch parkour videos, I watch it by myself, or maybe with like another person. But there's something to reacting to cool stuff happening with a group of people who all get it, if that makes sense. So for example, when Seth's video came up and every clip was a banger clip, it was like everyone in the theater is like, oh, what? So that was such a cool feeling to be like part of that and part of the group doing that. And so if I had watched his video by myself on my phone, it wouldn't have had nearly the impact it had watching it in the theater.
Yeah, to your point there, it is like watching comedy. It's like watching a comedy movie or a stand-up thing. If you're watching comedy by yourself, there may be something that's like the funniest thing you've heard in a long time, and you'll actually crack a laugh, like an actual laugh out loud, when you send someone out loud. But if you're watching with other people, it's you're laughing and you're looking next to you to see if the other person, like trying to share the experience, and it's always interesting how having that just like brings it out. Like you emote more when you're around other people, and yeah, like you said, it
definitely elevates the experience.
Yeah, it's cool doing that with parkour videos essentially, and I think if you were to send me like a playlist, I would maybe not even get around to watching what's on there. As you said, it was mostly enjoyable. I think the growth of parkour film festivals, we talked about this with the Commons guys, that if you're going to do it like continuously over time, there does need to be a certain cutoff where there's a quality that needs to be upheld with each submission. But given that they haven't been doing this for a long time, and I think it also highlighted that more because it was in a theater, right? And so you're like expecting a bit more. And I think people just need like more time. And so if you're going to do like a big film festival, there needs to be, like probably an 8-month lead up or something. And then there needs to be a cutoff time that's maybe like even a couple months out, so that if someone submits something and it's like almost good enough, they can actually, if you're of the mind where you don't want to exclude submissions, you could just get back to them and be like, hey, this needs to be shorter. People aren't going to be able to sit through the whole thing. Be able to provide some criticism and then a resubmission.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would say like some of the submissions were a bit like long and drawn out and not particularly exciting or enjoyable to watch. But there were many that were really good, and it was fun to watch. But it also made for quite a long time sitting there, like 3 hours, too long for me to sit and want to watch parkour videos.
Yeah.
And especially when not all of them are as awesome as some of them were. So, I'm really loving what the Commons is doing, and they're kind of like really pushing for. They're really pushing for more, I guess, long form video content that's outside of the Instagram platform, because that really is what I'd like to see more of. And I think there's a general movement in parkour, not just from the Commons, but with like Store, like doing best video of the year or whatever. There's a movement towards more long form artistic like parkour videos that are which is a reaction against the constant short form parkour that we've had for the last 5+ years. How long have we been seeing Instagram videos for? I don't know. It's been a long time, actually. Longer than 5 years. But actually today, as of today, which is actually Wednesday, this is probably coming out a few days later, but the Commons just launched their website, which has one video on it. And their whole thing is they're making a video platform. So it's a website that's a platform for parkour videos to live, that's outside of Instagram or YouTube. And they're actually trying to pay parkour athletes and creators to make content for their website. And their first release is a free release, which is Connor Pennington's video. I don't know what it's called, actually. It's a black and white video. It's cool. It's like he's from Western Massachusetts, so he went home and like shot it all by himself and just did a bunch of stuff in like a couple days, and like it does some like pretty gnarly stuff.
Yeah, particularly for it being shot over the course of like a couple days
and by himself
and solo.
Yeah, solo.
So you got to do like a lot of maybe not planning, but like knowing like, okay, this is where the shot's going to be. I need to get like another angle, and then having an idea of like how you're going to edit it after the fact, so that in post it's not just like still shot, still shot, still shot. It's like he's like the Bo Burnham of parkour.
He made us some content. So yeah, you should go check out their website. It is the Commons. I don't know what their website is actually.
Oh no. I'm trying to help
Let's
you.
see. Let's see. Is it the Commons dot the Commons dot Boston? Is that right? Yeah. The Commons dot Boston. That's easy to remember.
I didn't know you could
I didn't either. That's why I was like, "There's no way." And then
You can
I
dot
guess
Boston. Something. Can I dot Vancouver? Or
Oh, okay. So Connor's video is called 413, which I'm assuming is the area code for where he was from. Yeah, so they're gonna have like parkour content. I think they're gonna have like blog posts and stuff on there. It's a soft launch, so it's not like completely done. But it sounds like not sounds like they are going to be releasing some free content, but also some paid content. So I know there's a video coming from North, which is a group of athletes and creatives from Minnesota. Yep, Minneapolis area.
I am just totally going to believe you on this right now.
They're from there, which is so it's like it's Noah and Ethan, and then there's I think there's a couple other guys that I'm not familiar with, but they're coming out with a video that I believe is going to be a paid film, and then they're also commissioning some other parkour athletes and creators to make films to be put on their website. And again, this is going to live outside of YouTube. So it's a cool mission. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I'm kind of hopeful that it is, because it'd be cool to see something like that take off and see the world of parkour value content a little bit more instead of just kind of like the cheap, easy content like Instagram. Yeah, do you have any thoughts about this?
I have a slightly unpopular opinion.
Ooh, let's hear it out.
Yeah. Always good to have those. So it has to do around with so we have, and I need last name help here. David Ehrlich and Alec, not Baldwin.
His name is Alec
Rickbick.
No, wait, what's his last name?
Is that actually his last name? All right, while you're looking up that. So they've come out, they've
Reduker.
Okay. David Ehrlich, Alec Reduker, they have come out, they are the Commons. They have put out a video, which I'm actually sure like a lot of people have seen. They're doing a really good job of pushing the brand out early before the release. They had some showing on MoveMag. They showed the same like documentary about the Commons at both Move NYC and at Hubbable. And so if you haven't heard about them yet, you're probably living under a rock, because I think they've done a great job of actually getting the word out there about what they're doing and about the website being developed. So the thing that struck me about it is that it's going to be entirely funded by themselves. So they're relying off of like their own income from other things to fund this.
Yeah, they both have full-time jobs outside of parkour, and so they're just like, this is a passion project that they're funding, and they're saying that they don't want to make any money off of it, or at least in terms of the short-term future. Yeah,
and that's essentially where my opinion comes into play, because while that all sounds like well and good, I do think I would, as someone that's like going to like invest in it and want to see it go through, it actually would sound better to me if they were trying to make a profit, which usually sounds, why I say it's unpopular, it usually sounds weird to parkour in general. But this is just to make my argument here, why I think it's important for them to try to make profit, at least eventually, to be the eventual goal to make profit, is it adds motivation to it. Whereas if they're not trying to make profit, or if they're just relying on like, oh, we can just kind of keep doing this because we enjoy it, what happens if they don't enjoy it at a certain point? What is kind of what I'm leaning towards. And so if you're starting a business, which is it, even if it's a not-for-profit business, what it ultimately still is a business, if the business has the aim of profit, or if even better, if the owners of said business, if their like livelihood depends on it to some extent, it would make more sense that it's going to have reason to improve and get better over time. I can use the example of like SPL for this as well, right? So all of us who are involved in SPL in terms of the like ownership of it, it's not actually our full. It is also kind of a passion project. We would like it to make more money, and it is for
Are you
profit.
making money from it?
but it is generally like a passion project, and I've actually made this example before in meetings and in like talking to you, where I said like, if this was the only thing we were doing, it would be better. If SPL was the only thing that we were doing, it would be better because we would be forced to make it better. If we were depending on it to like make ends meet, for example, would be forced to make it better. So I'm not out here trying to say that. You want to
quit our day jobs and then just focus 100p?
If I was living at my parents still. At my mom's, like if I was living with my mom and I didn't, have rent to pay and stuff, that might be an option.
Here's the thing. If we quit our day jobs, then there is no SPL.
It's true. Because there's no...
Anyway.
The venue.
So bring it back to the comments.
I just want to finish up the point here about it. So I'm not to say that it's going to fail. In fact, I don't think it will. I think they're going to be able to keep doing it. I would just feel a little bit better about it if there was a goal to actually turn profit for the commons itself.
I hear you, and I don't disagree. The words that they use are basically, I'll paraphrase. So David and Alec were saying that they have full-time jobs outside of parkour, and so they don't see the commons as as needing to be profitable for them for the foreseeable future. And so I actually interpret this as like, for the first while, they're not expecting to make any return out of this, and they don't need to because they're actually like doing okay outside of the commons. But I think, and I agree with you, I think I would prefer them to seek a profit eventually once they are actually once the commons does become a more successful video platform, if and when that happens. So yeah, I agree. I thought the same exact thing both times when they gave their little talk at Move NYC and Hubbable. I was thinking the same thing, in that it sounds really good because it's like, yeah, you're charging people money for these videos so that you can pay the creators of the videos. And that sounds great, and I love that. But at a certain point, they are going to run into roadblocks where it feels more like work than it does like fun. And it's at that point where they're gonna be testing their resolve of if they actually want to stick with this passion project or if they want to quit and either dissolve the commons or hand it off to somebody else to do. So ultimately, it needs to be at least in their mission to eventually make a profit, so that at the very least they just reinvest it back into the business, if not like put it in their own pockets.
Yeah, it's like the idea of like profit, where like a founder of something making profit, and even if they're taking it out of the business, putting their own bank account, in most cases they end up using that money to do more business. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's so, a lot of the times when you own a business you're making good money out of it, you're not putting that into your own bank account so that you can buy more cool stuff. Although that could happen. It does happen. That is part of it. Yeah. But like when you take money out of a business, you owe more in taxes. So like if you don't really need the money, oftentimes it's better to just keep it in your business and grow the business so that the business makes more money, so that down the line in the future you can pull more money out. So it's like the commons, those guys, they don't need money from the commons because they're doing fine financially from their full-time jobs. But if they want the commons as an organization to be a successful business, or to be successful, they should be trying to aim to not just put money out into like towards creators, but to like actually have like a cash reserve for things like building a website or like maintaining a website or doing various things that they plan to do.
Yeah. There was like a point where I asked them like a tough question, which was, are you paying your creators up front, or are they receiving funds after the fact? And they said they hadn't actually figured that out yet entirely. So it's like, I guess it's going to be...
Yeah, it sounds like they were doing a little bit of some and a little bit the other.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in their mouth in terms of like, maybe they didn't figure it out yet, but that was kind of the vibe I got, was like, okay, we're still figuring this out. We have some idea.
But I mean, like anything, they're early in the process and they're going to go through a learning experience, and their first projects might actually fail. But again, that's going to test the resolve to see if they can continue like pushing through and then make it into a successful endeavor. And I'm hopeful, right? Yeah. I'm hopeful that they will. And whether they have to learn things the easy way or the hard way, that remains to be seen. We'll see. I mean, they launched their website, so it's cool that that's finally up. And I like that this is actually a big thing for me, is the very first video that they have up is a free video. And I was actually very concerned that they were going to release their first video as being a paid content. And that's a problematic kind of way of doing business, because you need to have a proof of concept that people actually want to watch your content.
Yeah.
So when you put out a piece of content that's behind a paywall, nobody's going to buy it, or at least few people will buy it, because they don't know that you are good at what you do yet. It's why Store is able to like monetize whenever they want to, because they have a proven track record of creating content that people want to watch. And they did that for free for a really long time before turning on that faucet of monetization. And so this is what I'm hopeful that the Commons will do, is that they will be putting out free content that people will be excited to watch. And then when they want to turn on the monetization paywall, they can do it, and people will buy it. This is actually like... the example, I think, a perfect example of a brand that can turn on monetization now after like the last few projects that they've done is Capstone. Because after Capstone Swarm, and honestly the other two Capstones as well, nobody wants to miss the next Capstone. So you don't want to miss the next Capstone. You're going to pay for the next one, as long as it's like reasonably priced. And so I think they've done a really good job of creating video content that people must see. And because of that, then they gave it away for free. And so because of that, now, because you must see it, you're going to be willing to pay $5, $10, $15, $20 bucks to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I just the last thing I wanted to say about this is that I am like a supporter of it. I will be purchasing videos from the Commons, I'm sure, in the future. And it's actually something where I remember years ago I was in a car with I think Kai Willis was in the car, perhaps some other like notable parkour industry heads at the time. And one of the questions, like just in the car ride, was like, if you had $1 million to invest in parkour, like what would you do with it? And I actually at the time said like some sort of like parkour streaming platform was what I thought, like if I had a lot of money, because knowing that you would need to lose a lot in order to make it a success, like you would need to put out a lot of stuff for free. So it does seem like David and Alec are willing to lose some in order to, not gain some for themselves, but like gain some for the actual creators. So it seems like they're willing to, pay ahead some creators to get some content going, lose some, and then, eventually be able to make it where like the actual content creators are gaining off of it. So I think it's a cool idea, and I am actually, as much as I was critical of it a moment ago, I am looking forward to seeing what comes of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, they're so early now. They just launched their website. We'll see. I mean, like, their first, they haven't even released their first paid content yet. So, hopefully we'll get a date actually when we'll actually be able to watch some of their paid content. But for now, you can watch Connor's video, which is up for free, thecommons.boston. Do we have anything else to talk about today?
There was like a recent, how much time we got? There was a recent social media video shared. I don't know if you want to touch on it. Maybe just quickly, because it is, I think, something that some of our listeners might be curious to hear our take on. But it is Jimmy the Giant, who has, also known as Kieran Owen, who has left parkour, seemingly to some extent, or at least stopped practicing himself.
He got LASIK too, I think.
Yeah. And that happened. Anyways, I have not seen the full video, so like we can only comment on what has been shown in the context that's been shown. I haven't taken the time to look at what he's actually said, but there is a video that was cut up by Costa Krunic, whose one of his handles on Instagram is About Parkour, and it basically is Jimmy the Giant himself saying that parkour is bad for your body.
Says it's really dangerous. It's really bad for your body. Mm-hmm. Maybe the worst sport for your body.
So if we can first, I'm going to get you to first comment on what that statement from Jimmy the Giant, and then maybe we can comment on the rebuttal from Costa.
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty obvious that parkour is not the worst sport for your body, because there are other sports that are out there that are very mainstream or even non-mainstream that are super duper dangerous and bad for your body.
So we can mention a couple here.
Basic example. I don't even need to mention a couple. I'm just going to mention American football.
Yeah, I was going to say combat sports in general.
Sports.
Where you're trying to do damage to your opponent. That's the goal.
Yeah. MMA, American football. I don't know. I'd probably even like some of the lifestyle sports like skateboarding or like surfing is actually pretty like light on your body unless you get hit by a massive wave and you can die. So like super dangerous sport if you're starting to tackle bigger and bigger waves. So it's like, I don't know, you can take any sport and you scale it, and the higher up the scale you go, the more dangerous it is. And parkour doesn't, like, yes, it's dangerous, and I actually am not denying that. In fact, Rene made a great video essay about this, about how parkour is dangerous. If you go back in our YouTube channel history, you can find it. But yes, parkour is dangerous, but is it the worst for your body? Absolutely not. In fact, it's probably healthy for most people to try.
Yeah. So I agree with that, and I think I can just to your point there. Yeah, it is. It's something that I think we're actively promoting as a way of fitness, as a alternative way of fitness, because you have things like CrossFit, where again you take CrossFit to scale and it gets crazy dangerous and risky to be doing. But just as like a holistic fitness practice for someone to do, it's great. And so is parkour, because you get to use your entire body to do it. You get to jump, you get to climb, you get to do all these like locomotor patterns, if you will, that you're supposed to do.
Fundamental locomotor patterns.
Yeah.
There's elements of risk, and navigating risk is a healthy experience.
Yeah. Probably great for your brain also. So I actually, there's a point I was making to you that is a video that I have yet to fully script, but I think in some ways parkour can be anti-aging, because of some of it, when we're taking it just as a practice, not necessarily as something that you are trying to pursue to do at the highest level. So then we have Costa Krunek, who comes up with his rebuttal, and some of the things he's saying are that if you practice, I'll just kind of bullet point really quick some of the things here, but if you practice parkour appropriately or properly for yourself, it's fine to do. You can't just simply go out and just start jumping at walls. There needs to be a variety of practices, such as strength and conditioning, such as warming up, such as knowing your limits, and having the correct ways of like approaching challenges. And he also mentions that there's the founders of the sport are still going strong. So what is your do you agree with most of what he's saying there, or is there also kind of, I guess, like fault in that sort of theory?
The term, I mean, I read on a forum a really long time ago. So if you don't know, back in the day, parkour people used to live on forums. And I think it was either the American Parkour Forum or the Parkour North America Forum, PKNA.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
So Rene was on that.
I remember.
And I remember somebody was saying, like, well, if you train properly, it will, something along those lines. And Rene's comment on this, before I knew him, was something along the lines of, like, please tell me what this proper training is. Very sarcastically, obviously. Because the term proper training doesn't really convey anything. Because you can deem anything proper training if you just say that it's approved. So like, I can be like, well, that's proper training right there. Oh, that's not proper training. Don't do that. But it could be somebody doing the same exact thing, and it's out of any kind of context to tell you like what that person is or isn't doing. So the term proper, as in the context here, is that it's not descriptive enough. Now, he does go into explaining that there are things that make up proper training, such as like including a warm-up, some type of strength and conditioning, managing training load, and like knowing your limits, I suppose, which is loosely defining what proper training is. But knowing any one of those things is really difficult to do, for anybody to do in parkour. So even if you're going and you're taking a parkour class at a parkour facility or at a parkour in some type of, like, you're learning from a parkour coach, whether outside or indoors, managing training load is not always going to be perfectly individualized to you. So I guess the issue I have here is like no one in parkour is managing their training load or training properly, because everyone is just kind of making it up as they go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think I've had two rude awakenings to maybe to training load, and it's like a who knows thing. Like, you get injured, and I think it's an important part of the injury recovery process to maybe have a little bit of delusion and come up with like reasons, particularly for things that you can improve upon, because it gives you something to do, and it also gives you confidence going back into like, I'm not going to make those mistakes again. So I think it is important to come up with reasons, but the reality is that like you could, something could happen 10,000 times, and then one time it goes like this, freak accidents happen. But one of the things that I have kind of turned to is like, yeah, I've spent a lot of time having too much volume in training sessions, too many jumps, too many impacts, and it does take its toll. But I spent a lot of time, particularly before like tearing my Achilles when I was 29 years old, thinking that I was the fittest and healthiest like being around, just walking around with this idea that I was just going to live forever and do parkour forever, because up until that point, I had like minor pains and things like that, but no major injuries, and I thought I was doing parkour properly. I thought I was doing like all the right things. And actually that that ego alone is actually what momentarily brought me to tears when I tore my Achilles. I actually remember like pretty vividly like the moment it happened and realizing what it meant. And as soon as like no one was around, like it was actually Jackson Wong, who still works here, who like ran to go get me like an ice pack, and I was alone for a moment, and I like started to cry, and then I had to like work myself out of it because it was like shedding the ego of that I wasn't perfect anymore, basically, up until that point. So that was kind of wild, and I think just having that attitude of like, oh, I'm doing everything properly is not. It's not a great attitude to have, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that's what like Costa is saying, but that's just like a little bit of like some of the growing process that I had to have around parkour as like a healthy thing, I guess, to do and like doing it properly. And the reality that I came to is that I've and continue to practice parkour for performance, and that might come to an end at some point. But I'm still we're having sessions where it's like we're trying to improve our jump. We're trying to strength train. We're not just doing it as a means of like injury prevention. We're trying to get a result of like a greater outputs. And I'm trying to improve like my mental fortitude. And I'm trying to do all these things to get greater results. And like I said, there may come a time, probably not, but there may come a time where that's not how I want to do parkour anymore. But until that comes, I'm still kind of playing this game of risk, and I'm just trying to mitigate it as much as I can. So it's like I'm trying to make these improvements. But when you're training for performance, that is the game that you're always playing, and it is a risky game. And that's in any sport. So back to what you were saying about like what Jimmy the Giant said about it being the worst sport to do. I could make the same claim about the other type of football, about soccer, where if you are trying to play something at the highest level, the training alone that goes into trying to do something at the highest level or trying to get as much out of yourself as you can is inherently risky. That is all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. We were playing this. It was not really a game. It's kind of just like what was it? We're Not Really Strangers game.
Yeah.
So we're like, you read a card, and it's kind of like really like deep questions that you ask of like the people who are in it. And one of the questions was, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you that was the best thing that ever happened to you, or something like worded like that. And you said, when you tore your Achilles.
Yeah.
And it was this, because I think it was largely an eye-opening moment, and it kind of made you, and ultimately coming back from the injury made you even better than before.
It motivated me too. Like it was a motivator. It was like, okay, I'm not living this life I thought I was living, but this is something I can recover from, and I can still get better. And so it was like just like proving that to myself was really motivating.
But you're an example of somebody who is very structured in their training, and so like you said, you thought you were proper, you were training properly, and so you're the type of person who's like considering, you warm up, you consider training load, you're mostly training within your limits or like doing things in a controlled fashion, and so like even though you have all these factors that you have in your mind or you're even documenting on your notebook, you can still succumb to an injury like this. And so to counter Costa's point is that I actually love what he's doing, and I love that he made this reel because it's an important topic, and there needs to be a rebuttal for wholesale statements that Jimmy is making about parkour being one of the worst sports for your body, which is just like blatantly false. But I think he goes kind of a little bit too far in the opposite direction of just saying like, well, there's this thing called proper training that you can do where you never get injured and you live a pristinely healthy life despite trying to do jumps that are potentially risky, So I think that's kind of a mistake. And then the final point that I think you wanted to address here was how he said that the founders are still going strong. Well, do we really know that? Because like the only two founders that I still, or actually three founders that I still see like practicing are Laurent Piemontesi, and he's basically only doing handstand stuff and like
1,000 squats.
air squats, you know? So like, and I love that he still has a physical practice and he's still moving, but would I consider him still going strong? No, he's older. He's still physically moving his body, which is good. A lot of people in other sports have healthy lifestyles well into their 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, you know? So like, it's great that he has a physical practice, but is he still doing hench jumps? No. Like, is he still pushing his limit? Is he still like redlining to get that little bit of extra out of himself? I don't think he is. The other two are Sebastian, who is, again, still physically active, still has a practice. But at one point, he actually stopped doing parkour because he was like too stressed. He was doing the Madonna tour and he was doing parkour every day for a month or whatever, and was just wrecked. His body was wrecked and he needed to recover, and he just stopped doing parkour and then eventually came back into it and is having fun with it again. But he's also nowhere near like the level of many other people, even close to his age. I mean, you think about like somebody like Bo, or like
Bo Kendall is just
yeah, you think of Bo, or like I don't know. There's like others who are like in their 50s and like are like arguably more skilled, more physically capable than Sebastian is. And then the last one is Williams. Williams Bell, and he was like the youngest of the founders, but he's the one who's doing the most like cool, like big parkour stuff, and he seems to be going strong. So he's like the only one that I think actually lives up to what Costa Krunik was saying, which was the founders are still going strong. Well, it seems like Williams is the only one.
Yeah, and Williams too. Like he, I would say, took a large break to do a different type of practice. Yeah, like the Williams Bell method.
Yeah,
you know, which was very climbing based, not
low impact climbing based. Yeah, and that's great too. And like I said, like I think parkour instills in you a mindset of continuing a healthy lifestyle, right? I view the world differently through parkour. If I stopped doing parkour tomorrow, I would still live a physically active lifestyle. I would go to Lynn Canyon, climb around on the rocks. I'd swim in the cold water. I'd bike around the city. I would ski. I would do things physically active that were that I found to be enjoyable, and it was all ignited from parkour. And so but yeah, I don't know. I think that this is a great conversation to have. And like I said, I like what Costa said in the video overall, because it's rebutting Jimmy's or Kieran's perspective on like parkour being super dangerous for your body and not healthy. But there also needs to be some realism brought in, which is that parkour absolutely can be dangerous and it can take a toll on your body, but that doesn't negate the positive impact that it has.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say about this is just going back to, because I agree with everything there, and I think that's what you said about Costa and everything, but just going back to Kieran, the Jimmy Giant Owen character, who at one point was like, I think a lot of people were viewing, particularly when he came out with that documentary about EZ, which was really what pushed him to having like any amount of following or anything, was like his first piece, made him kind of like this saving grace of parkour. And then that's like very quickly like went away with like subsequent videos, because he was favoring like telling a story versus like getting facts right about a lot of things. And that, you got to do a little bit of that for filmmaking, particularly if you're trying to make like interesting video essays or vlogs. but it was rubbing people the wrong way as it should. And then he just started doing less and less parkour content. And so he went from like this, again, the saving grace of parkour to now like parkour is your enemy and you're going to talk shit about it.
So to be fair, we didn't watch the video.
That's true.
And it does sound like from some of the comments that I saw, like people were saying that like, it sounds like he really loves doing parkour and he's just upset that his body's kind of falling apart on him as a result of doing parkour. But maybe if he tried practicing parkour properly, that
well, it's interesting too because like he started working out, seemingly a lot of it's bodybuilding, which can be healthy as well. If unless you're actually trying to go on stage and be a bodybuilder, then that's totally not healthy. But just lifting weights and hitting all body parts and stuff, not a bad thing to do. But I don't know. Maybe he'll come back to it. Maybe he'll miss it and come back. But it is unfortunate to see that where again a guy who I think in many people's eyes and particularly like a lot of youth around parkour was like parkour's saving grace, and people were getting excited about it because there were people following his channel that didn't do parkour, and he was telling the stories. He was putting parkour into context, and I think a lot of credit should be actually given to what he started off doing there. And it's I think it's unfortunate that he didn't stick with that niche long enough. He branched out, which is what you actually should do in business. Is you can't stick in if you want to scale more. So if he wants to get more of a following, he can't stay in the niche forever. But it kind of sucks that he didn't stay in the niche for longer, and seemingly is like done with parkour, both personally and through like covering it.
He seems like he found other interests, and he potentially has a social group outside of parkour now, which is good for him. But it's also he needs to be called out anytime he's talking about parkour now because he doesn't train properly.
He doesn't train. I'm also wondering, like, there's a void to be filled there, and I'm wondering who is going to fill that void, because I don't think anyone who's like, I think of like Point A is Max Henry, who's trying to tell parkour stories, but just not like the way that Kieran was doing it. I think was he's very talented in it. I think he is actually like a great storyteller, and I don't know who is going to fill those shoes, but someone needs to.
So the issue, I think, with most people in parkour is they aren't getting into the game of YouTube, and I think that's what Jimmy the Giant did. Was he got into the game of YouTube and he wanted to play that game.
Yeah. And
because he wanted to play that game, that's why he was able to make successful videos about parkour, and then ultimately the reason. And by being in the game of YouTube, he realized quickly parkour isn't the only way to do it. In fact, he's probably better off making sure he can cover other topics as well, because that's ultimately like how he'll never run out of topics to talk about.
You're not wrong.
We somehow still made an episode today. We didn't run out of topics.
Hey, never run out of topics.
Okay, I think that's all I've got in my brain today to talk about. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a comment below about something. We do read every single comment.
It's true. We had met a couple of our commenters recently, and they were, at least one of them, not pleased that we don't respond. Maybe we can start responding to some comments, but we do read them. We just don't always respond.
Yes. All right, that's the challenge. We'll respond to the comments on this STS episode. But leave us something that will be easy to comment to. Or hard, I don't know. Well, I'll take a challenge. Okay. That's all. Fist bump.